At 65, I never imagined I'd get a call from debt collectors asking about my future son-in-law, and over $47,000 in gambling debt no less. But that was just the beginning of what I'd uncover. My name's Eleanor Carter, and for decades I thought life had already shown me everything. If you're listening to this, please like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment about where you're tuning in from. 5 years ago I lost my husband David, leaving just me and our daughter Rachel, now 32 in the light of my life. I spent 40 years as a civil engineer, building not only bridges and roads but a life of stability and dignity for us. On March 5, 2024, I was in my office downtown Boston, finishing up some blueprints when my phone rang at 2:30. I assumed it was a client, until I heard a cold, unfamiliar voice. "Mrs. Carter, this is Express Collections. We're trying to reach Eric Johnson. Your number's listed as his reference." Eric, Rachel's fiancé. The man who was supposed to marry her in April. At that fancy Maplewood Estate wedding I was paying for, $85,000 in total. I asked what kind of debt it was, though my gut already knew I wouldn't like the answer. "Online betting, ma'am. Amount due, $47,000, interest increasing daily." I hung up shaking. It had to be a mistake. Eric worked in marketing, earned well, drove a new car. But then small things clicked. How he always checked his phone during dinners, how he brushed off questions about money, how he changed the subject whenever wedding expenses came up. That afternoon I started looking for clues. Rachel had left some wedding papers at my house the weekend before. Among them were bank statements. My heart dropped. Regular transfers to gambling sites. Bet365 William Hill Bwin. Over $30,000 spent in 6 months. Worse yet, many payments came from cards tied to Rachel's account. My daughter was unknowingly paying for his addiction. I didn't sleep that night. Around 4 a.m. I finally admitted the truth. Eric had a gambling problem and he was using Rachel. He'd even asked me to co-sign a loan to improve his credit. I had said yes. Now I saw the manipulation behind his smile. The next morning I made up my mind. I brewed coffee, sat at my kitchen table and gathered every document I had. Statements, call logs, everything. I was going to tell Rachel even if it broke her heart. When she arrived that evening, cheerful and clueless, I felt sick. I laid out the papers on the table. "Sit down, honey," I said softly. "We need to talk about Eric." She sighed, defensive already. "Mom, what now?" I handed her the first statement. As her eyes moved over the numbers, the color drained from her face. "This must be wrong. Eric doesn't gamble." I slid over the collector's note. "They called me yesterday. He used my number for his debts." Rachel's voice shook. $47,000? That can't be real." "It is. And he's been using your money." She stood, pacing toward the window. "No, Mom. He would have told me if something was wrong." "Really? Did he tell you when he asked for those joint accounts? Or when he made me co-sign his loan?" She turned back, eyes wet. "You're exaggerating. Everyone plays online sometimes. Rachel, he's lost over $30,000 in half a year. That's not playing, that's addiction." Her tone hardened. "He's a good man, Mom. He loves me. I know he does. But he loves gambling more. If you marry him now, he'll ruin you." "Are you saying I should cancel the wedding?" "I'm saying, postpone it. 6 months. Let him get help." Rachel was silent for a long time, staring outside. Finally she said coldly, "I'm not calling off my wedding over your suspicions. They're not suspicions. They're facts. You went through my private things," she snapped. "Even if this were true, he's my fiancé. You fix problems together. You don't run away." My heart broke. "Rachel, if you go through with this wedding before Eric clears his debts, I can't fund it." Her eyes filled with rage. "Are you blackmailing me?" "I'm protecting you." "No, you're controlling me, just like after Dad died." She grabbed her purse, furious tears spilling down her cheeks, and stormed out. I just stood there, surrounded by the papers, the proof that might destroy my daughter's future or maybe, just maybe, save it. "I'm done listening to this, Mom. Eric and I are getting married on April 20th, with or without your money. And how exactly will you cover the remaining $85,000? I asked quietly. With more online bets? She froze at the doorway, her back to me. We'll find a way. Rachel, please. Just talk to him, show him the documents. If he loves you, he'll admit there's a problem and get help. She turned then, and the cold look in her eyes pierced me. You know what, Mom? I will talk to him. Not about your accusations, though. I'll tell him how my own mother is trying to ruin my happiness 6 weeks before my wedding. And with that she walked out, leaving me alone among the scattered papers and a silence that felt heavier than stone. I didn't realize it then, but I'd just lit a fuse that would explode 4 days later. Those next days dragged endlessly. Rachel didn't call once, and every time I reached for the phone something stopped me. I told myself she needed time, but deep down I feared what Eric might be telling her. On Friday, March 9th, my sister Linda dropped by my office. At 62 she'd always been my voice of reason, especially since David's death. Her intuition about people was uncanny. "Eleanor, you look awful," she said, settling across from me. "What happened with Rachel?" I told her everything. The debts, the confrontation, the silence. Linda listened quietly, frowning. "I always felt something was off with that man," she said. "Remember Christmas dinner? He asked too many questions about your finances. And last month I saw him at Parkview Mall, with a blonde girl who wasn't Rachel." My stomach twisted. "Are you sure?" "Positive." I almost went up to say hi, but the way he was touching her, it wasn't friendly. By Monday, March 12th, I couldn't wait any longer. I called Rachel around 10 a.m. "What do you want, Mom?" Her tone was icy. "I just need to know, did you talk to Eric?" "Yes." And he explained everything. "Those aren't bets, they're cryptocurrency investments. He's building our future." My jaw tightened. "Rachel, those companies are known betting sites. Bet365 isn't a crypto platform." "You don't understand modern finance," she snapped. "Daniel, sorry, Eric showed me his apps, his plans. Everything's fine. But you called his office pretending to be a client. Are you spying on him?" I froze. I had called, just to confirm where he worked. "I was trying to protect you. You're trying to destroy us. My life is mine to ruin if I want. You've been bitter and alone since Dad died, and you can't stand to see me happy." Her words cut like knives. I took a breath, forcing calm. "Listen carefully. If Eric doesn't start professional treatment for his gambling by March 20th, I'll cancel every payment related to the wedding, all $85,000. You're giving me an ultimatum? I'm giving you a chance before it's too late. And if I refuse? Then you'll have to pay for it yourself." For a few seconds, I heard nothing but her shaky breathing. "You can't do this to me." "I can. And I will." "Mom, please." 8 days, Rachel. That's all I'm asking." She hung up. That night I couldn't eat. I sat in my study staring at old photos of her, my little girl on her bike, her knees scraped, crying more from pride than pain. "Scrapes teach us to be careful," I used to say. Now she was heading toward a far greater fall, and I was the only one who could stop it. By Thursday morning my phone rang from a number I didn't know. "Mrs. Carter, it's Eric. We need to talk." His voice sounded calm, too calm. "I'm listening." "Rachel's upset. I don't understand why you're turning this into such a big deal. $47,000 in gambling debts isn't a big deal? Those are investments, not bets. Eric, I have records from betting sites. I know exactly where the money went." Silence. Then his voice shifted, colder. "Fine, maybe I gambled more than I should have. But that doesn't mean I'm an addict or that I'd hurt Rachel." "You already are. You're using her accounts." "That's just technical. We share finances." "You're not married yet," I said sharply. "And if this continues, you never will be." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm offering you a choice. Get professional help by March 20th and the wedding goes on. And if I don't? Then you can explain to Rachel why her $85,000 dream turns into a $200 City Hall ceremony." He laughed then, low, cold, and full of warning. "Mrs. Carter," Eric said, his voice calm but laced with arrogance. "You're underestimating how much your daughter loves me. Rachel already chose me over you. Do you really think money will change that?" "I hope you never have to find out," I replied. "Oh," he said softly, "but I think I will." That night, at 11:47 p.m., I got the message that shattered my heart. It was from Rachel. "I'd rather be without a mother than lose my husband." I read it again and again, each word slicing deeper than the last. It wasn't just betrayal, it was finality. Eric had won the first battle and I hadn't even begun to fight. I sat frozen in my brown leather chair, the one where David and I used to curl up on Sunday nights to watch old movies. The house was silent, except for the ticking wall clock that had once hung in my parents' home. Those 10 words glowed on my phone like fire. Not even the day doctors told me David wouldn't beat the cancer hurt like this. My phone buzzed again, another message from Rachel. For a brief second I hoped she'd changed her mind. But the words that followed crushed that hope. Daniel says you're jealous. That you can't stand not being the most important person in my life. He says you've treated me like a husband since Dad died. Sick mom. You need help. My hands shook. Jealous? Sick? The accusations stung worse than anything Eric could have said himself. Had grief truly made me cling too tightly to my daughter? The thought twisted inside me like a knife. But then I remembered, the bank records, the calls, the proof. $47,000 in gambling debt wasn't a symptom of jealousy. It was a fact. At 12:30 a.m. I forced myself to move. I went upstairs to my office, switched on the lamp and began organizing everything. Every receipt, contract and invoice tied to the wedding. David used to tease me for keeping every scrap of paper, but now that habit was my armor. I laid out hundreds of documents across my oak desk. Maplewood Estate, $35,000 for the venue and decor. The Golden Rose, $28,000 for catering. Secret Garden, $12,000 for flowers. The Troubadours, $10,000 for live music. Years of work, savings and sacrifice all right there in front of me. By 4:15 a.m., I had cataloged everything. $85,247 exactly. Not counting the Mercedes-Benz I'd bought as their wedding gift, still registered in my name. As I stacked the folders neatly, a strange calm settled over me. Every paper was proof of love but also of control, and I finally realized how much power I still held. At 6 a.m. I called Linda. She answered groggily but woke up fast when she heard my tone. Eleanor, what's wrong? Rachel texted me last night, I said quietly, reading the messages word for word. Linda was silent for nearly a minute. Oh my God, she whispered. He's completely brainwashed her. Do you think she's right? Am I possessive? Jealous? Eleanor, I've known you 65 years. You're stubborn, protective, sure, but not sick. He's manipulating her, that's all. Her words were a balm to my wounded heart. What do I do, Linda? My daughter hates me. She doesn't hate you. She's lost, confused, under his spell. You have to stand firm. If you give in now, you'll lose her forever. After we hung up, I sat by the kitchen window with coffee, watching the sunrise. It was Tuesday, March 13th, and I'd made my decision. Rachel had chosen her path. Now it was my turn. I thought about what Father Henderson said at David's funeral. Real love sometimes means making painful choices for someone's good. I had believed he meant letting go of David. Now I realized he also meant knowing when to draw the line with those you love most. At 2:30 p.m. I called Michael Reed, my attorney of 15 years. Michael, I need to see you right away. It's about Rachel and the wedding. Of course, he said. Come by at 5. Before leaving, I looked once more at the neat stacks of papers on my desk. Each page represented love and power. Every contract, every payment, every vendor was tied to my name. If Rachel truly preferred to live without a mother, then she would learn what life without my support really meant. Eric thought he'd won. But the war had just begun, and this time I held every weapon. All the contracts list you as the sole contractor, Michael Reed explained, scrolling through the documents. Every vendor has your payment details. Rachel and Eric are named only as beneficiaries. They hold no legal responsibility. So, I can cancel everything? Absolutely. But there will be some penalties. He pulled up a calculator. Let's see. The wedding's on April 20th, about 5 weeks away. The Maplewood Estate venue will charge $3,000 for late cancellation. The Golden Rose catering, $2,500 for ingredients already ordered. Secret Garden will keep $1,000 for imported flowers. In total, around $7,500 lost, but that still saves you over $77,000. It's not about money, Michael, I said quietly. It's about principles. I know, but I want you to be clear about the consequences. He leaned back in his chair. Once you cancel, there's no turning back. Rachel could try to sue for emotional distress or breach of verbal promise. None would hold in court, but it could get messy. I thought for a moment. And the Mercedes? That's easy, he said. It's still registered to you. You can repossess it without issue. What about the joint wedding accounts? He reviewed the papers. You're the only contributor. You can close them and recover the remaining 15,000. If Eric's been using the money for gambling, you have grounds for legal action. That's misappropriation. Michael walked to the window. Eleanor, before we proceed, are you sure? Once you start this, your relationship with Rachel may never be the same. It already changed the moment she chose him over me, I said. If she sees me as the villain for protecting her, so be it. I'd rather be the villain who saves my daughter than the mother who watches her fall apart. He nodded slowly. Then we'll move strategically. Cancel the major vendors first. The venue and catering, then flowers, music, photography. After that, close the accounts and reclaim the car. Document every call, every email, every signature. If this goes to court, proof will protect you. Before I left, Michael handed me a folder with forms and a checklist. One last thing, he said softly. When she finally realizes you were right, and she will, make sure you're ready to forgive. By 7:30 that evening, I returned home with a strange calm I hadn't felt in days. My study looked like a war room, documents stacked like battle plans. I heated up a bowl of David's lentil soup and went over every step one last time. Tomorrow I'd begin the cancellations. By Friday it would all be done. At 9:45 p.m. Linda called. How did it go with Michael? Perfectly. Everything's solid legally. I can cancel without major problems. And emotionally? For the first time since this started, I said, I feel in control. Have you heard from Rachel? No, and maybe that's for the best, at least until this is over. I'm proud of you, Eleanor. I know this must be harder than anything you've faced. No, I said softly. The hardest thing was burying David. This is painful but necessary. After we hung up, I poured a small glass of brandy and sat in the armchair by the fireplace, looking at our family photos. Rachel at 5, her first day of school. 16, her graduation. 28, the day she brought Eric home, his arm around her like he already owned her. The signs were there all along. I just hadn't wanted to see them. At 11:30, I turned off the lights and checked my phone one last time. Still nothing from Rachel. I slept deeply for the first time in a week. Wednesday, March 14th, dawned clear over Boston. I woke early, showered, and dressed in my navy blue suit. I felt focused, steady, like a general ready for battle. After breakfast, I reviewed Michael's checklist again, then sat at my desk with all my materials neatly organized. At 9 a.m. I made my first call, Maplewood Estate. Good morning, this is Elena Vasquez, a cheerful voice said. Good morning, Elena. This is Eleanor Carter. I have your venue booked for April 20th under reference me 2024847. Yes, Mrs. Carter, for your daughter Rachel's wedding. Everything's coming along beautifully. We just confirmed the tasting menu yesterday. Elena, I interrupted gently, I need to cancel the event, completely. Silence. Then disbelief. Cancel? Ma'am, it's only 5 weeks away. We've already. I understand, I said calmly. I'm prepared to pay all contractual penalties. She transferred me to the sales director who spent 20 minutes trying to persuade me to postpone instead. I remained polite but firm. The decision is final. The penalty will be $3,000 plus tax, he said finally. Understood. When can I come in to sign? This afternoon if possible. Perfect. I'll be there. My next call was to the Golden Rose. Chef Fernando Castillo sounded irritated. Eleanor, we've already reserved the seafood from Maine and we've hired 5 extra cooks, the chef said. Frank, I'm truly sorry, I answered. I'll cover every non-recoverable expense, exactly as our contract says. That's a $2,500 penalty, plus ingredients we can't resell. Total is $4,200. Each cancellation felt like a stab, not for the money but for what I was dismantling. Months of planning, little dreams Rachel and I had spun together, the picture of her glowing on her wedding day. My third call was to Secret Garden. The florist, Lindsay Porter, sounded close to tears. Mrs. Carter, the white peonies your daughter wanted are coming in from Holland. We're growing garden roses to match that exact shade. Lindsay, keep what you can use elsewhere. Bill me for the rest. The standard penalty is $1,000, but the special orders add $800 more. I can't absorb it. I understand. By 12:30 I'd finished the 6 big calls. The voices on the other end weren't just billing me. They were disappointed for a love story they thought they were helping create. The penalties came to $7,650. A little more than Michael predicted, but within range. During lunch, I saw 3 missed calls from Rachel. I didn't call back. Not yet. I needed to finish everything before facing the storm. At 3 p.m., I went to Mercedes-Benz of Back Bay on Newberry Street. The silver C-Class I'd bought was in the shop getting the last touches Rachel requested. Custom upholstery, premium audio. "Mrs. Carter, great to see you," said Jake Matthews, the salesman. "Ready to approve the final details?" "Actually, I'm taking the car back." His smile vanished. "Take it back. Cancel the remaining work and return it to stock. You can keep whatever's already installed. We've invested about $3,000 in those upgrades. Invoice me for it. I want the car today." Jake checked with his manager and returned with papers. "Sign here to void the planned transfer to Rachel Carter." I signed and felt a heavy sadness. I'd pictured Rachel's face so many times, me pressing the keys into her hand. Instead, the keys went back onto my ring, cold and impersonal. At 5 p.m., I sat in the bank manager's office. Megan Sanders looked over the files. "How can I help, Mrs. Carter?" "I'm closing accounts 4431256789 and 4431256790, the joint wedding accounts." She scanned the screen. "Combined balance is $14,650. As primary holder and sole contributor, you can close them and transfer the funds." While she processed the closure, Megan pulled the recent activity. Most were my deposits. Then 3 withdrawals. $500 on February 28th, $750 on March 5th, $1,200 on March 10th. "Who authorized these?" I asked. "Recorded to Rachel Carter's card, different ATMs," she said. A chill ran through me. Those dates matched the spike in Eric's betting. Rachel had been pulling cash from the wedding accounts for him, likely without knowing the truth. By 6:45, I was home with every document squared away. Maplewood Estate, the Golden Rose, Secret Garden, the Troubadours, Martin Artistic Photography, and the Mercedes-Benz reversal. All filed in order. Total hit: $8,950 in penalties and sunk costs. Painful, yes, but I'd still protected over $77,000. I'd also recovered $14,650 from the accounts, though realizing Rachel had unknowingly fed Eric's habit left a bitter aftertaste. At 7:30, my phone lit up again. "Rachel." This time I answered. "Mom, what did you do?" Her voice cracked. "Hi, honey. How are you?" "Don't do that. Elena from the venue called. You canceled everything." "That's right. I gave you until March 20th. 2 days have passed and I've heard nothing about Eric seeking real help." "Are you insane? We're 5 weeks out." It was simple. Every contract is in my name. Every payment was my money. It was our money. You promised to pay. And I would have, if your fiancé weren't a gambling addict using your accounts to fund his bets. Silence. "Between February 28th and March 10th, you withdrew $2,450 from the wedding accounts," I said gently. "Do you know what Eric used it for?" That's not true. I have the statements in front of me. I can read the dates and amounts." Her sobs broke my heart, but I couldn't waver. "Mom, please. We can't cancel now. It's already done. Venue, catering, flowers, music, photography. I also reclaimed the car. You can't do this to me. I already did. Now you and Eric can prove how real your love is without my money propping it up." I hung up with a shattered heart and a clear conscience. The war had officially begun. Thursday, March 17th started deceptively calm. I slept better, as if finality gave my body permission to rest. I made coffee, read the paper, tried to keep a routine. At 10:15 the doorbell rang. I opened it to Rachel, eyes swollen, breathing like she'd been crying for hours. Behind her, leaning on a taxi with the engine running, stood Eric. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "Eric can wait in the cab." "No, Mom. He's coming in. He has a right to be here." Eric walked up with that practiced mix of humility and defiance, a wrinkled white shirt and tired slacks. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," he said, smiling without warmth. "I'm sorry it's come to this." In the living room, Rachel sank into the couch she used to curl up on when nightmares woke her. Eric stood behind her, hands on her shoulders, more possessive than protective. I can't believe you canceled everything, Rachel said. Elena told me you even paid the penalties, $8,900 just gone. It's a small price, I said evenly, compared to what I'd lose if I let this farce continue. Eric's jaw tightened. Mrs. Carter, Eric began, trying to sound calm, you're completely misinterpreting the situation. Misinterpreting? I cut him off. I have bank statements showing over $40,000 in bets within 6 months and calls from collectors demanding payment. What exactly am I misinterpreting? Rachel leaned forward, desperate. Mom, Daniel explained everything. It's not betting, it's cryptocurrency trading. Rachel, Bet365 and William Hill aren't trading platforms. They're casinos. Eric changed tone, playing the remorseful act. I admit I've made some bad financial choices, he said softly. But I love Rachel and I'm willing to get help. Now, after I've canceled the wedding, you want help? Sometimes, he said, a shock makes us see clearly. Rachel's face brightened with fragile hope. Mom? He's willing to change. We can postpone the wedding, let him get treatment. I looked at her. Rachel, do you even know how much you withdrew from the joint accounts last month? She frowned. What does that have to do with? $2,450, I said. 3 withdrawals. What was that money for? She glanced nervously at Eric, who tightened his grip on her shoulders. Personal expenses, she whispered. Or money you gave him for gambling? That's enough. Eric snapped, losing his mask. I won't let you treat Rachel like a criminal. She's not, I said evenly. You are. You've lied, manipulated her, and used her money. You don't know anything about us. I know you've isolated her, turned her against her own family, and used her like a bank. Stop it. Both of you. Rachel cried, stepping between us. Mom, I'll marry him at City Hall if I have to. Just stop fighting over money. It's not about money, I said softly. It's about you being used. He loves me. Really? Then ask him about the blonde woman he was seen with at Parkview Mall last month. Silence. Rachel turned to Eric, whose face had drained of color. What is she talking about? She whispered. He stammered. I don't know. It's a mistake. Linda saw you, I said quietly. You were with her, acting very familiar. Rachel stared at him, her breath trembling. Daniel, is it true? He sputtered. Your mom's trying to break us apart. She doesn't have to. You did that yourself. I pulled out my phone. Call Linda if you need to hear it from her. But Rachel didn't need proof. His silence told her everything. Oh my God, she whispered, hands over her mouth. It was all a lie. Rachel, please, Eric begged, stepping forward. Don't touch me, she cried, stepping back. Her face, the pain in it, reminded me of the day we told her father wouldn't make it. Mom, I didn't know. He told me you. I know, sweetheart, I said softly. I know. Eric's calm mask shattered. If you love me, Rachel, come with me right now. Your mother will never accept me. Rachel looked at him with new eyes. Is that your answer? After all this? She's manipulating you. My mother paid $85,000 for our wedding, bought me a Mercedes. That's not control, that's love. You're the one who used me. Eric's face twisted with anger. If you don't come now, we're done. Then we're done, Rachel said firmly. He stared shocked. Really? After everything? After everything you've lied about? Yes. Eric stormed toward the door, turning at the last second. This isn't over, old woman. Rachel will come back when she realizes how alone she is. If she does, I said calmly, it'll be her choice, not with my money. He slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. Rachel collapsed on the couch, sobbing. I sat beside her, and for the first time in weeks she didn't pull away. Mom, I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I've been such a fool. You're not a fool, I said, holding her close. You were manipulated. It happens. What matters is that you see clearly now. We stayed like that for a long time, her tears soaking my shoulder, mine silently falling into her hair. What am I going to do now? She finally whispered. You're going to rebuild piece by piece. And I'll be right here. After everything I said to you? Rachel, I'm your mother. A mother's love isn't something you can cancel like a wedding contract. But even as I comforted her, I knew this wasn't over. Eric wasn't the kind of man to disappear quietly. The next few days felt like living in the eye of a hurricane. Rachel stayed with me that night, sleeping in her old room for the first time in 2 years. Around 3 a.m. I found her in the kitchen, staring at a cold cup of tea. "I can't sleep," she murmured. "Every time I close my eyes, I replay all the lies." "The mind needs time to make sense of betrayal," I told her gently, pouring her another cup. "When I lost your father, I couldn't sleep either. The brain keeps searching for reasons." "But Dad didn't betray you," she whispered. "Eric did. And I helped him." That night she started to open up, about the mood swings, the sudden disappearances, the small loans he never repaid. "Last week he asked for $500 because his paycheck was delayed," she said bitterly. "I gave it to him because I trusted him." By Friday, March 18th, word had spread. The phone rang nonstop with calls from family and friends trying to piece together rumors. Some were genuinely concerned. Others just wanted gossip. Around noon, Paula, my late husband's sister, showed up, her face full of curiosity and judgment. "Eleanor, tell me it's not true. You canceled Rachel's wedding?" "It's true. Eric's a gambling addict and a liar. I had to protect her." "But 5 weeks before the wedding," she gasped. "Couldn't you have waited until after?" That kind of thinking would become common. People caring more about avoiding embarrassment than saving Rachel from a disaster. Rachel, who had been listening from the kitchen, walked in with red eyes but a clear voice. "Aunt Paula, my mom saved me from the biggest mistake of my life." "Eric wasn't just a gambling addict," Rachel said quietly. "He was cheating on me too." Paula's expression shifted from disbelief to shock. For the next hour, Rachel told her everything, from the debts to the lies, and I watched my sister-in-law's face soften into sympathy. But not everyone reacted with compassion. On Saturday, March 19th, Rachel got a call from her best friend, Christina Vega, her maid of honor. Rachel, I just heard about the wedding. Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" Christina's tone was sharp. "I already bought the bridesmaid dress, booked the hotel, and took days off work." "Christina, he cheated on me. And used my money to gamble." "All men have flaws, Rachel. You don't cancel a wedding for that. You fix things." The call ended badly, with Christina accusing her of being dramatic before hanging up. It was the first of several friendships Rachel would lose in the days ahead. On Sunday morning, during Mass at our parish in Beacon Hill, I felt the sting of social judgment myself. People I'd known for decades approached with polite pity. "Eleanor, such a shame about Rachel," murmured Emma Ross, one of David's old friends. "Couldn't you have worked things out quietly? Canceling a wedding is so public." "Would you rather I let her marry a gambling addict to avoid gossip?" I asked sharply. "Of course not," she said, lowering her eyes. "But maybe you could have postponed." By the time I left church, I understood. We were about to face months of whispers and half-truths from people who valued appearances over truth. Monday, March 21st, brought harsher consequences. Rachel started getting calls from vendors she'd hired on her own, using her savings for things I hadn't covered. The first was Elena Moore, owner of Ever After Bridal. "Rachel, your dress was custom-made. It's yours, I can't resell it." That was $2,800 gone. Next, the travel agency, her honeymoon to Santorini. "We can refund 30%, they said. Of the $4,500 total, Rachel got back just $1,350. Then came the invitations, $1,200 printed and useless. In all, Rachel lost $13,150, her entire savings from 3 years working overtime at the insurance company. "Mom, this was all my money," she said that night, tears filling her eyes. "I worked 2 years of weekends for this." "Sweetheart, I'll cover those losses." She shook her head. "No. These were my choices. I defended him. I have to own that." Her strength made me proud. She was learning what Eric never would, responsibility. The next evening, Linda called around 8. "Eleanor, you need to hear this. My friend Carmen, who works at a casino, checked Eric's records. He's lost another $23,000, just in the last 3 weeks." "23,000? I whispered. "Yes. And he told people he'd pay it off with the wedding money." Rachel, who had overheard, turned pale. "He planned to use my wedding gifts to pay his debts." "Exactly. When he found out you canceled, he had a meltdown at the casino. yelling about that old manipulative woman who ruined his plans. That night Rachel and I stayed up talking for hours. Piece by piece the truth emerged. Eric wasn't just dishonest, he was a predator. He'd seen us as a way out of his financial mess. "Mom," Rachel asked softly, "do you think he ever really loved me?" "I think he loved the comfort you gave him," I said. "But real love, the kind that sacrifices and commits, no honey, he's not capable of that. So, I wasted 2 years of my life." "You didn't waste anything," I told her. "You learned what love isn't and what strength feels like." As she went upstairs to bed, I stayed in the living room surrounded by the documents, our paper trail of pain and proof. Between my cancellations and her losses, we'd lost $22,100. But compared to what she would have lost in a lifetime with him, it felt like a small price for freedom. Wednesday, March 23rd, dawned gray and rainy, the city matching our exhaustion. Rachel had returned to her apartment the day before, needing space, but we spoke constantly. For the first time in months, our talks were honest and light, without Eric's shadow hanging over us. At 11:30 a.m., Linda showed up at my office, holding a manila folder tight against her chest. "Eleanor, we need to talk," she said seriously. "I found out more about Eric and it's worse than we thought." My stomach dropped. "What now?" She opened the folder. Photos, notes and printed records. "Remember the blonde woman from Parkview Mall?" I asked my friend Monica Rivera, who works in HR at a major retailer, to check if Eric really worked at that marketing firm he mentioned. And he never worked there. The company confirmed he's never been on payroll. I felt dizzy. Then where did he get his money? That's the worst part. Linda slid forward several documents. Through Monica I found Beatrice Santos, who worked at a bank. Her sister, Patricia, dated Eric for 8 months in 2022. He told her he was a tech entrepreneur. She loaned him money, tens of thousands, for fake investments that always had banking issues. The same scam he pulled on Rachel. My chest tightened as I looked at photos. Eric smiling beside a young brunette at fancy restaurants and beach resorts. "The same pattern," Linda said quietly. But with Patricia, it ended even worse. "In 6 months he got $18,000 of her savings," Linda said. When the family confronted him, he vanished overnight, left a note about an urgent business trip to Germany. I checked the dates. So he met Rachel 2 months after scamming Patricia Santos? Correct. And there's more. She slid over another bundle. Monica Rivera's cousin works at a downtown realty office. We verified the address Eric gave as his residence. Does it exist? It's real, but it's an office building. The doorman says Eric paid $50 a month to use the address for mail. He's never lived there. I felt sick. He'd lied about his job, finances, and even his home, a whole identity built to gain my daughter's trust. How did you get all this so fast? When I saw how he played Rachel, I called every contact I have. Banks, HR, real estate. Boston is big, but our circles are small. Then she showed the worst of it. Cell phone photos of Eric entering and leaving an apartment in the Seaport district. Who took these? Carmen Torres from the casino. I asked her to follow him after Tuesday's incident. He didn't end up homeless after the breakup. He's been living with Lucy Martin, 29, a nurse. Neighbors say he's been there 3 months, telling her he's slowly separating from a toxic ex. She's already lent him money for supposed family emergencies. While Rachel planned her wedding, and I invested $85,000, Eric was running a parallel life with another woman, likely the same lies on repeat. Does Rachel know about Lucy? Not yet. I wanted to talk strategy. Then we warn Lucy. She deserves the truth. Already moving, Linda said. Carmen will reach out quietly. For 2 hours we pieced together the puzzle. At least 4 phone numbers in his name, 3 different addresses on forms, and according to tax records Monica checked, no returns filed in 3 years. He's a financial ghost, I murmured. Outside the system and very good at it. If I hadn't kept perfect records and confronted Rachel, he would have pulled off his biggest con. At 3 p.m. I called Rachel. Honey, come over. Linda found more, and you need to hear it in person. She arrived at 4:30, looking years older from the strain. Linda started with the fake job and address, moved to Patricia and ended with Lucy. I watched Rachel's face cycle from disbelief to pain to fury, and finally, a calm that scared me most. So he never loved me, she said flatly. It was just work to him. Rachel. It's okay. I needed the truth. She stared out at David's garden. For 2 years I gave him my bed, my money, my future. And he used everything I told him about Dad, my fears, my hopes, to control me better. Linda hugged her. Trusting the wrong man doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. What about Lucy? Rachel asked. It's your call, I said. I want to talk to her. No one should go through what I did. Her answer filled me with pride. Even wounded, my daughter was thinking of someone else. That night, as Linda coordinated with Carmen, I sat with the weight of it. Eric tried to break Rachel, and instead forged a tougher, wiser woman. But I knew he wouldn't fade quietly. Men like him don't accept defeat. Friday, March 25th, the story turned. At 8:45 a.m., an unknown number flashed on my phone. Mrs. Carter, I'm Lucy Martin. We need to talk about Eric. My heart pounded. I hadn't expected her to call first. Good morning, Lucy. What happened? Last night he came home unhinged, yelling about you and Rachel. He smashed things, then disappeared with my laptop and my grandmother's jewelry. Are you hurt? I'm okay. But I found things after he left. Documents, photos, love letters to other women. Come to my office this morning. Rachel wants to meet you. You can help each other make sense of what he's been doing. Will she want to see me? I thought she'd hate me. She's been through the same thing. Hate is the last thing she feels. At 11 o'clock, Lucy walked in with Rachel, who'd insisted on meeting her at the subway. Petite, hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes, Lucy carried a plastic bag stuffed with Eric's papers. Mrs. Carter, she began, barely above a whisper. First, I'm sorry. Eric told me you were a controlling mother who couldn't accept Rachel's happiness. And what do you think now? I asked. Lucy sighed. Now I think Eric's a brilliant monster. He knows exactly what to say to make women do what he wants. Rachel sat beside her and gently took her hand. How long were you with him? 4 months officially. But I think he'd been watching me longer. Lucy opened her bag and pulled out a folder. I work at the hospital. He used to show up in the cafeteria saying he was visiting a sick uncle. Later I realized he was studying me. How did it start? I asked. One day he invited me for coffee. Told me a sad story about a girlfriend whose family rejected him because he wasn't rich. Said he was depressed. Rachel and I exchanged a look. It was our story, twisted and recycled. At first he seemed generous. Dinners, gifts, constant attention. Then the emergencies began. His mom's surgery, his brother's accident, problems with work. I kept notes of every loan. In 4 months I gave him $8,400, all my savings for a car. Rachel hugged her. He did the same to me. $13,000 of my own money, plus another $2,400 from the wedding account. Lucy nodded sadly. He never asked for big sums at once. 50 here, 200 there. You don't realize you've been financing his addiction until it's too late. Then Lucy pulled out something that made my stomach drop. A small notebook. I found this hidden in my closet. He kept detailed lists, women's names, jobs, family backgrounds, and how much he could get from each. On one page, Rachel Carter, 32, administrator, widowed mother with money, wedding potential, $80,000 to $100,000, long-term target. On the next, Lucy Martin, 29, nurse, no close family, estimated savings $10,000, emotionally vulnerable. There were at least 6 other names, including Patricia Santos. This man is a psychopath, I whispered. Lucy's voice trembled. Before he left, he said it was all your fault, Mrs. Carter. That you'd ruin the best plan he'd ever had. He said he'd make you regret it. Did he threaten you? Not me directly. But he shouted, that old woman doesn't know who she's dealing with. He smashed my TV, broke dishes, he was furious. That was enough. I called the police and reported the threats, the theft, and everything we'd uncovered. Detective Javier Moreno arrived at 3:30 p.m., listened carefully and examined the notebook. Ladies, he said gravely, this is organized crime. Eric Johnson isn't just a liar. He's a professional con artist specializing in romance fraud. Can you arrest him? Rachel asked. With this evidence, yes. But first we have to find him. Men like this rarely walk away quietly. They get obsessed, and that's when they make mistakes. His words proved true. On Sunday, March 27th, Rachel received 15 missed calls from Eric between 2 and 5 in the morning. When she finally picked up, his voice was slurred, drunk, angry, desperate. Rachel, my love, your mother set me up. She manipulated everything to separate us. It's useless, Eric. I know the truth about Patricia, Lucy, about everything. Those women mean nothing. You're the one I love. We can start over anywhere. I never want to see you again. Your mother owes me $80,000, he screamed. She promised a wedding and she's going to pay or I'll sue you both. Rachel hung up, but the calls didn't stop. The next morning when I arrived at my office around 9, Eric was there, unshaven, trembling, eyes wild. Eleanor Carter, he shouted. You ruined my life. I stepped back and called the police. As they approached, he shouted nonsense about conspiracies and money, then resisted arrest, threatening to burn everything if he didn't get his wedding funds. He was charged with disorderly conduct, theft, and making threats. In his pockets, officers found Lucy's jewelry and a paper listing the addresses of my home, my office, and Rachel's apartment. By March 29th, Detective Moreno called with news. Eric had confessed partially, admitting to scamming several women. He'll face charges of aggravated fraud, theft, and threats, he told us. Likely 2 to 4 years in prison. That afternoon, Rachel and I sat quietly in the garden, watching David's roses bloom with the first colors of spring. Mom, she said softly, was I stupid to trust him? Trust isn't stupidity, sweetheart. It's humanity. He exploited that. That's on him, not you. I lost 2 years, $15,000 and nearly lost you. But you gained something priceless, clarity, strength, and the knowledge of what real love should look like. How can you forgive me so easily? Because you're my daughter. A mother's love doesn't vanish in a storm. That night, as she slept in her old room for the last time before moving back home, I thought about everything we'd survived. We'd lost money and peace but gained honesty, unity, and strength. Eric had tried to break us, and instead he welded us closer than ever. 4 months later, July 2024. Life had found a new rhythm. One Saturday afternoon I sat on the terrace, watching sunlight filter through the old oak David planted when Rachel was little. The silence after Eric's arrest had felt strange at first, half peace, half emptiness, but slowly healing filled the spaces he'd left behind. Rachel was back at work, rebuilding her life. And I was rediscovering mine. On April 15th, just 5 days before what would have been her wedding, I got a call from Charles Vega, an old college friend I hadn't heard from in years. Eleanor, he said, I heard what you went through. I admire your courage. Courage. I laughed softly. It felt more like stubbornness. No, he said. Most parents would have looked away to avoid conflict. You faced it. He invited me to join his urban photography group, a mix of retirees and professionals who spent Sundays capturing everyday life around Boston. I decided to try. My first outing was April 21st in a park near the river. I brought my old digital camera, barely remembering how to use it. A woman named Maria Santos, recently widowed, smiled and said, "Photography makes you look at the world differently. Through the lens you focus on now, not the past, not the future." Her words struck something deep inside me. After months of pain and worry, I realized she was right. The camera helped me see again, not what I'd lost but what I still had. My daughter, my strength, and the quiet beauty of moving forward. My first photos were terrible, crooked, blurry, overexposed. But Sunday after Sunday something changed. I started seeing meaning in simple moments. An old man feeding pigeons, a couple sharing donuts, kids chasing soap bubbles that looked like floating rainbows. In May, during one of our weekly dinners, Rachel noticed. "Mom, you've got a different energy lately," she said, smiling over our paella. "You look lighter." Photography helped me see beauty where I never used to, I admitted. Even in the messiest parts of life. Like what happened to us? Yes, I smiled. What I once saw as a tragedy I now see as growth, hard-earned but needed. My next passion came through Charles Vega, who invited me to his downtown chess club. Every Tuesday and Thursday, people of all ages gathered to play, chat, and analyze moves that mirrored life itself. Chess is democratic, explained Andrew Ruiz, a 71-year-old retired professor who became my mentor. Age, wealth, strength, none of it matters. Only thought and patience. At first I lost every game. But gradually I learned strategy. You play with patience, Andrew said one day. You build, you wait, and then you move decisively. I laughed. That's how I handled things with Rachel. I didn't explode, I prepared step by step. Exactly, he said. The best victories aren't the fastest, they're the most complete. While I rediscovered myself, Rachel began her own transformation. She started therapy to process the emotional abuse she'd suffered. I wasn't stupid, she told me one June evening. I was targeted by a manipulator who studied me like a project. Understanding that helps me heal. She also invested her remaining savings into a night course in advanced accounting, determined to become financially independent. I don't ever want to depend on anyone again, she said firmly. Not even you, Mom. You'll always have my support, I told her. I know, she smiled. But now, asking for help will be my choice, not my necessity. In July, Detective Moreno called with final news. Given the evidence, Eric Johnson took a plea deal, 3.5 years in prison, full restitution and registry as a fraud offender. I felt no triumph. Just peace. Like finishing a difficult but necessary book. How do you feel about him now? I asked Rachel. Honestly, she said, I pity him. Not romantically, just human pity. It must be awful to live without real love. That's when I knew she'd fully healed. By late July, Rachel met someone new, Daniel Herrera, a classmate from her accounting course. A divorced father of an 8-year-old, calm and genuine. He's nothing like the other Daniel, she said after their third date. No lies, no drama, just honesty. I met him at a family dinner in August. He spoke with warmth about his son and respect for Rachel. Mrs. Carter, he told me, I know what you went through. And honestly, I admire you for protecting your daughter. If I were you, I'd have done the same. When I asked if my involvement bothered him, he smiled. Not at all. It comforts me to know she has a family that loves her enough to fight for her. That answer won me over immediately. By September, as I reviewed my summer photos, I realized I'd been documenting renewal all along. New grass pushing through cracked pavement, restored buildings, strangers laughing. Without knowing it, I'd captured my own rebirth. In October, Rachel and I visited David's grave for the first time since the chaos began. We brought fresh flowers and sat in silence. Do you think Dad would have handled it differently? She asked. Your father had a gift for reading people, I said. He'd have sensed something off about Eric early on. But in the big moments, we'd have faced it together like always. Do you think he'd be proud? I looked at the headstone. True love transcends time. I think he'd be proud that we learned the difference between love and manipulation, between generosity and exploitation. Now, as I write these reflections, I know the hardest months of our lives became our most transformative. We lost $35,000, 2 years of hope and months of peace. But we gained far more. The strength to make hard choices, the wisdom to see through deceit, and the courage to protect what truly matters, even if it means being the villain for a while. Rachel became stronger, independent, and self-aware. I rediscovered old passions, made genuine friends, and learned it's never too late to start over. Eric Johnson, without meaning to, taught us something vital. Love sometimes demands battle. Limitless kindness can become complicity, and predators thrive only where silence lives. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've been through something like this, share your story in the comments.